Medfield. Thanks for watching Medfield TV once again. And for his last public appearance is our retired town administrator, Mike Sullivan. After almost 44 years of putting up with the town and the town putting up with him, his term is over and he's been succeeded by Christine Trierweiler, who I know will do a wonderful job. But Mike's going to talk to us about his closing days and what he envisions and his favorite messages and favorite memories of the past. You must have some beautiful memories.
Oh, lots of them, and some not so beautiful, but mostly good. So, one of the least beautiful, I always said, I hope the day after I retire it snows so I can lie in bed, look out the window and say, let it melt. Well, they say be careful what you wish for, because I woke up on Sunday morning, which was actually the day after the storm started, but the storm started the day after I retired on Friday. And it was snowing, but it froze, and it froze so solid, the snow turned to ice.
I know, wasn't it awful?
It was just incredible, scraping the windshield and trying to get the ice off the car. And I said, no, you see, you asked for it, you got it. So
it's your fault for retiring.
That's right, yes, yeah. I always used to say when people ask me, are you retiring? I'd say, I'm shy, but I'm not retiring. So, no, I'm shy and retiring, so I'm retired.
So what are your best memories?
Well, there's lots of them. You know, the people that work at Town Hall, the board and committee members, the town employees, you know, I don't know, there's so many good memories. The renovation of Town Hall, which was good and bad.
Yeah, I know.
We had that contractor from hell, Anchor. I
Anchors
remember the
Away,
headline,
remember we used to
Anchors
joke about Anchors
yes,
Away.
Yeah, and it was supposed to take a year, and it took over 2 years before we got back. But
that was a hard one.
And it was funny, this past summer was 20 years since we moved back in Town Hall.
Is it really that long?
Yeah, yep, in 1998. So I think some of the things I really am proud of is all the land that we're able to acquire. Keep Medfield sort of rural in character. I think the preservation of a lot of the historic buildings that we were able to save from the wrecking ball. The downtown, how that's been rejuvenated. You know, that everybody used to call it Deadfield. And now you go downtown on a weekend and it's bustling.
And it's nice.
Especially in the
It's
spring
very, very
and summer.
healthy. I like it.
Yes, yes. And people are coming from other towns and eating at the restaurants and shopping at the stores. So, so that's one thing. I think also the affordable housing initiatives we've been able to accomplish that have kept us out of trouble with the state, but are kind of done in a way that says Medfield. You know, they're not these big gargantuan projects like you see in many of the other towns that resisted 40B. I think the Affordable Housing Committee, and starting with Allendale way back when.
I still remember that.
Yeah, and
the first, when we started Allendale, I was on the Affordable Housing Committee, of course, and the first day that they were going to put the houses up, most of us took the time off from work and we stood there.
yes,
Just
yes.
like crazy people standing watching, because they were built in assembly line fashion, and they would like put one piece down here and then go to the next row, next house, next house. It was
Yes.
amazing. We were in awe.
We were, as I was cleaning out my office, there was a couple of albums on top of the file cabinets outside my office, and one of them had pictures of Allendale with the units being lifted by crane, the pieces of the houses. So my favorite line about Allendale, though, was Babe Ancross at the dedication. She said, this project took 5 years. 6 months to build the houses and 4.5 years to get the permits.
Permits is right. That was very hard.
It's a morass of paperwork. Thank God we had somebody like Bay that was willing to dig in and put the time and effort in
Yeah.
to.
I'll never forget the lottery, though. For there were more applicants than there were houses, and there was going to be a lottery, and everybody, all the applicants were sitting there in front of the selectmen and the Affordable Housing Committee.
Yes.
And none of us on the committee wanted to draw the names out because
Yes.
it was just too much pressure and too much emotion. And we finally got the retired police or retired fire chief to do it.
Right,
And,
yes.
But the first name that was drawn, the person was sitting in the front row, and the woman next to him got up and gave him a big hug, and then her name was called next. By the time the meeting was over, I think every one of us, including Steve Nolan, our chairman, was probably pretty much wiped out.
Yes, yeah.
Very, very emotional.
It was tough because there were a few people that didn't get
I know
selected.
it, and
it was
including one that had helped us in the project.
Yes, yeah.
I felt very bad about that.
But it was funny. It's been very stable. Most of the people that got the houses, or an awful lot of them, are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And the houses, for the most part, are very well maintained.
They look it.
The people that grew up there, I know one of them, Josh Yoke, works at Noon Hill Grill, and I've talked to him about it, and he's grew up there and has very good memories of
That's
it.
good. That's good.
And I think they actually dedicated a tree in memory of, in honor of Bay, not in memory of Bay, in honor of Bay. So
That is a good memory,
they were quite
though.
appreciative of her efforts too. So, and since then we've had, I think we've got about 9 developments now, and a couple in the works. So we're about 7.7% of our 10% goal. So that is puts us in pretty good shape as far as the state goes. And I know not everybody's happy with it. Some of the people that think it's they don't want the 40B housing in town, but it was on the ballot, and the voters voted 56 or 57% to keep it.
I did.
And these days, when you go into Boston, it's so much building going on, and the governor's committed to 185,000 units of housing by 2025, I think. And MAPC says we need 440,000 in eastern Massachusetts. So thank God Amazon didn't come to Massachusetts.
Yes, that would have changed the world.
The traffic's bad enough now without adding 25,000 more.
Yeah, the 40Bs aren't always a bad project, though, because I was on the Affordable Housing Committee when they built Turtle Brook Way, which I happened to buy years later, and never thought I would, or I couldn't have voted on it, of course. But 6 of the units, houses are affordable, and you can't tell which ones when you go down the street.
Yes,
You can't tell which one, and I love it.
And that's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
And those units that Bob Borelli did on North Street, houses were getting kind of run down, and he really did a nice job renovating them.
He did.
And they're just the type of houses the state wants, walking distance to the center. If we can keep up with that type of development, I think the state is using us as a model of the right way to do it. So,
Are you going to volunteer to be on any town committees?
after I take a break, I think, in fairness to Christine, who's the new town administrator, I should back off for a while and keep my nose out of town affairs. But I'd like to stay involved in some of the committees, and I've already committed to cook breakfast at the senior centers when they have it, although they don't have it very often. So, the recycling committee said I'd continue to do their spreadsheets and whatnot.
Good.
And so, yeah, I'd like to. But I got to get organized myself. I got to clean up my act and
Clean up your desk was a big one. That's what everybody, when they heard you were going to retire, they said, what's he going to do with his desk?
Yes, well,
Because it was, for those at home, it was piled.
well, thanks to Mike LaFrancesca, he came up with a new filing system for me. Those big trash barrels that they, like the ones you put out for the collection.
Yeah?
I filled 2 of those, and I thought I'd have everything done by the day I moved out, and I almost did it, but then people kept coming in to wish me well and say goodbye, so slowed me down a bit. And I was going to go in last Saturday, but they had the police chief interviews at the assessment center that like they had when Bob Meany was hired. So I didn't want to be there for that, so I went in Friday afternoon. So I'll try to go in either Friday afternoon or Saturday morning and finish up and get out of there. Then I could start cleaning up at my house. But it's fascinating the things you come across. You know, I came across the old garbage contract from 1975.
Oh my God.
And I was kidding them. I said, God, now when the recycling committee wanted to initiate organic food waste recycling, I said, sounds suspiciously like garbage collection to me. In fact, I think it still goes to one of the Cassidys in Midwest.
1975, wow.
Yeah.
I think I was on the library board back then, I think.
Probably were,
I think so.
you know. That's another thing I think the town should be proud of. We've done some really good capital projects. You know, the library addition really, there was actually 2 initially. It was the, they connected the rectory from St. Edward's, and then they decided that wasn't working out that well, so they put a new addition on, and thankfully the trustees held their ground and insisted that it matched the original building, which
I'm glad.
was done by one of the architects from Williamsburg. And I think the new addition is very handsome, goes really well with the existing addition, and the gazebo kind of sets it off and gives us a little sort of a town common, which we never really had.
Yeah.
And if the Zulu Gallery ever gets their project done, that will really be a nice center with the town hall. And then the town hall came out quite nicely after all the horror show we went through with the original contractor.
I still miss when I wrote for the newspaper starting in '72, I think when I started. The selectmen's meetings were on the first floor of Town Hall in public view of everybody, and people could go by walking a dog or going to church, because Old St. Edward's Church was right across the way. Yeah. They could go in and out, they could go into the library, and everybody could see the selectmen there, and thought it was such an honest, good way to do small town business. I was very disappointed we couldn't work it out.
Well, it always seems to be working very well over the years.
I think it does work up, but I was still disappointed when we had to go upstairs.
Yeah. I still think with the warrant committee room, you know, when you go by there and there's a meeting going on, that's all lit up, and you can look in and see people working, and the assessors when they meet. So there are some meetings still going on. I mean, when I came, the police station was in, the assessors and tax collector were. The Public Works was where the men's room is.
That's right.
And the veterans agent was next to that. Town clerk was still in the corner in the collector's office. But welfare office, welfare was still under the town at that time. And the welfare agent office was on the first floor. Second floor was the old movie theater that had been, it was a horrible renovation. They put, you know, sheets of plywood or, you know, that paneling, fake walnut paneling, blocked the windows, and it was so depressing. It was one big room, and it was so good to get the town hall renovated, and we were able to add another floor, actually 2 floors, because we converted the basement to office space down where the building department is, or where the water and public works is now, water and sewer board of health, and the veterans agent is there now.
Yeah, how many different selectmen did you work with?
Oh, probably 30,
Who were-
35.
Kelleher, when you first started?
The three that hired me were Harry Kelleher was chairman, and then Joe Marchionette and Art Farrar
And Art
were
Farrar,
the three.
that's right.
So, and then Eddie Beard came on, and then it was a whole succession of, you know, everybody from Rich DeSorga to some woman came on, was there for 30 years.
I wonder
never
who that
left.
could have been. There was a woman before me, though.
Who?
Sandy Muncy.
That's
She only
right,
did one
yes,
term.
That's right, yes, yeah.
I did vote for her when she ran, but
Yeah. Speaking of women, as we were talking about earlier, I was talking to Martha Fester, and Evelyn had reminded me this the other day that the second floor of Town Hall now is all women, and the first floor is all women. Because Chris has taken my place as town administrator. You got Sarah Reposer and Marion Benaldi.
and they're good. I'm not knocking them.
And Leslie Willits. And of course, Chris and Evelyn. And then on the first floor, it's all women. You've got Georgia and Joy and Yvonne and Diane and Kathy and Susan and Dolores and Carol, town clerk. So the women are taking over. I was kidding some days. All we need now is the police chief, the fire chief, and the public works director for female. So maybe the superintendent of schools, I guess. Too,
Maybe
yeah.
it might be coming.
Yeah.
Might be coming.
So you know, it's good. You know, and they're all very capable. We have a very good financial management team, and I think the town finances are in pretty good shape. The taxes are too high, but you know
They
that
are.
goes without saying every place. And you can blame a lot of that on what's going on at the State House. They keep pushing programs on us and giving the money to the cities and sending the bills to us. So, but you do the best you can.
Yeah.
And,
You said at one point you'd be willing to come in and talk periodically about what was going on in the state.
yeah,
state government.
when I can figure out. I
Be good.
remember for those of us who are old enough to remember Senator William Proxmire, who was a senator, United States Senator from Wisconsin, who used to publish a Golden Fleece Award, which was a egregious example of wasteful government spending. And I said, we need that again. Unfortunately, with the millions of pages of government regulations they crank out of Washington, it'd take an army of people to just try to read through the regulations, find out what's in them.
That's true.
You know, so that's kind of a hopeless task. I think the solution will come when we go bankrupt, which we're about. It's not that far off.
You're talking state or federal?
Federal. You know, we're spending $70 billion a year more than we've got coming
know.
in. A month, not a year, a month.
And I have 2 great-grandchildren, so
Yeah,
I often wonder.
And how long can you spend $70 billion a month more than you get coming in and stay solvent? You know, you can print money, but sooner or later, the Chinese are going to start loaning us money.
The printing press will run dry.
Exactly, yeah. So if they don't get their act together, and the way it's going down there, it's getting more hopeless
It's
by
very
the day.
scary.
So
We had a talk the other day among a group of people my age. Was there one honest politician in Washington, D.C. that we really, totally, completely trusted?
oh, I'm sure they are, but you don't know who they are.
I know,
they're
but none of
working
us could
behind
come
the
up with
scene.
one.
They're the ones who aren't showy, who don't, you know.
That's probably true.
Want to get on the 6 o'clock news and
Yeah.
make fools of themselves and act like they know it all. I'm sure there are hardworking
I hope there are
members of
some.
Congress, and it's a shame that they get ignored. And in the power struggle, it's all about power and money,
I think it
and
is.
not about running the country. I mean, this last 2 years has been pathetic. Neither the executive branch or the legislative branch seem to care about running the country. All they care about is what's that guy from Starbucks said? They're just engaging in revenge politics. It's just a good way of describing it, I thought.
Well, I hope I live long enough to see it swing back the other way. I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know what it will take. There's too much money involved, I think. And I don't know how you ever get the money out of it after what the Supreme Court did, allowing them, to spend whatever money they want. And there's so much, some of these people have so much money that they can just buy the elections.
Yeah,
so
I know.
It's a shame. And, the lobbyists in Washington are just running it because they finance the elections for Congress and for the White House. And how do you stop that?
I don't know. So why don't you run for state rep or state senator?
I'm too old. I'm not stupid enough like some of these politicians down there. That
You're
are
the same
running
age as
it.
Donald Trump.
Yes, actually I'm 5 months older than him. So,
Okay.
it's interesting. The year I was born, in 1946, the first year of the baby boom, there were 3 presidents that were born that same year.
Who?
Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and George Bush.
Oh my God.
They were all 1946.
Wow.
So I said, I don't know whether that's a good sign or probably not a good sign, given their track records. But so it's
I didn't realize that.
yeah. But at the state level, the state is more manageable. I think they pass 1,000 bills a year, or they review 1,000 bills a year, so you can get a handle on it. And I said it would be interesting to go through and read some of the bills that are passed, just so people would know what our legislators are voting on.
I think our local legislators have been good.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes, they have, yes. Now we have a new senator. He's been there just about, this is the end of his first term, I guess. It's kind of unusual. We have a liberal Democrat and a conservative Republican in the same town, so.
And a moderate Republican governor.
Yes.
One columnist described Charlie Baker as a Democrat in Republican clothes.
It's probably not
Because he's
far
very
from the
moderate.
truth.
He's very moderate. He's willing to listen to both sides, and I like that.
Yes.
It's very
Well, that's
important.
why he's the most popular governor in the country.
But he does
so.
listen, does seem to listen.
And the amazing thing is, Massachusetts is such a blue state, and yet we have a red governor. How did that happen? I guess people just don't trust putting everything in the hands of one party.
I don't.
Yeah.
As you know, been an independent all along.
Well, I think most people are these days, because most people are somewhat embarrassed by both parties.
My parents always were, and I still remember when Dewey and Truman were running against each other. And that was Dewey was expected to win this in a landslide. But my parents couldn't decide who to vote for, and every night at dinner time, after dinner, they'd have coffee and they'd say, well, what about this one, what about that one? And they'd ask us to join in and see what we thought, and they both ended up voting for Truman. But it was interesting. And then, of course, the headlines the next day were that Dewey beat Truman. And of course, that was the big mess of the newspaper.
And that was if you could get a hold of the copy of the paper that said Dewey wins,
I
and
know.
then one of the paper printed up that
I
said
know
Dewey wins.
Yeah. Wish I'd bought one.
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, when Truman was in office, he was hated. Everybody despised him. And after he left office, he became somewhat of a hero, a man of the people.
One of the most honest presidents, according to polls.
Yes, and supposedly he came out of a political hack organization in Missouri that was run by somebody that was running it for their own political benefit. At least that's the stories are. But then he seemed to rise above it and was able to make the tough decisions. And I think the best thing about Harry Truman is when he went out of office, he went home to Missouri and stayed there. And didn't. The only time you heard from him was when somebody was insulting his daughter.
That's right.
or her piano playing.
I think he was a good man. I really think he was.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if I would have voted that way, I'm not sure, but I was too young at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's you never know how people, you know, that job is so fraught with danger and peril. You never know how people will rise or fall to the occasion. So some do better than others, and sometimes it takes 50 years to decide who was good and who was
That's
bad.
right.
They all had their sins. I mean, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams waged a political battle that would make our political campaigns today seem mild by comparison.
Just think if they'd had Twitter, what they could have done.
Oh God! And you know, Abraham Lincoln. There was a show on called The Wreck of the Sultana, and he was writing letters to keep some guy in a job who was the nephew of his first campaign manager when he ran for Illinois, and they concluded that the ship sank and killed 500 people, or drowned or burned or died in the explosion. So they all have their sins. You know, nobody's perfect, and
Except us.
except yeah. No. We could do a show on my sins, and probably one on your sins
I
too.
have
So,
made quite a few mistakes, no
Yeah.
question at all.
yes. If you haven't made mistakes, then what's that one of those things that Winston Churchill liked? They said people who have never made a mistake have short memories.
That's
So-
probably right.
So
But retiring isn't a mistake for you though, right?
no, it was time. You know, people said, "Oh, you should have kept working," and there's a time when you feel it's, you need new blood, and fortunately, Chris will have been there 20 years in March, so she's well seasoned. She's not a newcomer coming in, because it's unfortunate we lost Matt Violet, the assistant accountant, and he was good for him. He got a great offer. He's starting Monday as the town accountant in the town of Mansfield, which is where he lives.
Good, and
And
that's
he has
perfect.
2 young
That's
kids.
perfect for him. Good for him.
Yes, yeah. And the warrant committee has 6 new members this year out of 9. So fortunately, the 3 members that stayed on are very
Okay,
good
who's staying on,
members.
Mike?
Mike Pastore, Joanna Hilbert, and
Oh, that's right.
the
I'm trying to remember who else.
oh
Because I know my daughter's going,
yes, I
Jack
know
Wolf
her,
is
yeah.
going.
yes oh gosh,
I'm trying to
I
remember
know
who
her
the other
name.
one
I
would
can't
be.
just can't think of it. Blonde, short blonde hair,
I shouldn't have
glasses,
asked that, yeah.
accounting.
But there's a third one anyway.
Okay, yeah.
At least they'll have
I'll
a
think of
solid-
it as soon as the
Of course.
show
But at
goes
least there'll
off.
be a solid
Yes.
base of 3
Yes.
veterans that'll know what's going on.
Yes, yeah. So the time marches on, and it's time to go. We've been lucky in Medfield that, I think one of the things that's made Medfield government good is that a lot of people stayed for a long time. And we've been able to get good people in. Bob Meany and Bill Kingsbury were excellent chiefs.
And they grew up here, which is wonderful.
Yes, yeah, and Ken Feeney did a great job
Oh,
in
I
his
like Ken
tenure
Feeney
here.
so much.
Yes, yeah.
I like Mo too. I'm not knocking Mo.
Mo,
at all. I think he
yeah,
does a wonderful
you
job.
wondered when Ken left, or could someone take his place?
I was
and,
worried about it.
and Mo is not Ken. They're very different,
Of
but
course they
they're
are.
in his own way. He's doing an excellent job.
And you were not Christine, but Christine will do a good job. I know she will.
Yes, yeah. She's
Remember when we appointed her, I think it was a unanimous vote, as I remember when we appointed her.
I think so.
But our only
Yeah.
concern was, will she get along well trying to be an authority over other women, whether they're going to work or not at town
Yeah,
hall.
and over the years, I've found that has been tough. I think it's getting easier now.
think so, too.
women are more accepting of women bosses than they were back
I
then.
agree. And I'm glad we did it because I think she's done a great job.
Yes, and the employees trust her. She works well with the committees. She's brought in some really good people. we have our library director's female also, so
Okay.
probably a majority of the department heads.
Yeah.
They'll never get us for sex discrimination unless it's discriminating against males, maybe.
Absolutely,
Yeah?
that'll be the new way.
Yes.
The reverse.
Yeah. And we've had a terrific public works department. The guys
you
have been
do.
there for
No
years. George DiVinanzi was there 68 years, and people look at me when I say that, but he started at 14 part-time working in the cemetery. Retired at 82 from the highway department as a mechanic. And then Bobby Kennedy Sr. was there 60 years.
Yeah.
Eddie Hinckley was there 50 years. He's still
another
tree
guy.
warden, yes, yeah. And we've got a lot of other good employees, that Malcolm Gibson and many others, little plants, and we've got a good crop of young people coming in too. One of the unfortunate things is not many of them can afford to live in
I know.
in Medfield. Like Paul Hinckley lives in Millis, and it's hard because it is expensive to buy a house. And it's one of the nice things about Medfield over the years is that so many of our employees did live in town and committed to the town. So, but you do the best you can. The projects, we've kept up with our capital project. I was very glad the town meeting adopted that municipal building stabilization fund last year, because that will do a lot to help us maintain our buildings. One of the problems with town buildings, and that's not just Medfield, it's everywhere, and it's the way the system has been set up, is you built new buildings and then you never maintain them. And especially with school buildings, because the School Building Assistance Bureau was set up so it was bound to fail. They would pay, in the case of many of the cities, they'd pay 90% of the cost of the building. They didn't require that you spend a certain amount of the school budget on maintaining the buildings. So if a school committee had a choice between hiring teachers or guidance counselors or maintaining the building,
Let the buildings go.
they let the buildings go, and then they go to the state, and the state would build them a new one and pay 90% of the cost. So they revised the formula, and we went from 63% reimbursement to 40%. But it's, I think it's starting to make a difference. And where we've done so many new buildings, well, they're not so new anymore. The library and the town hall are 20 years old. The town garage, well, the Council on Aging just finished 10 years in their new building. Town garage is probably about 7 years now. The public safety building's about 3 years. And they're really gems. We redid 3 of our school buildings when it was inexpensive to redo them. I can't believe the figures I'm hearing on the new elementary school. They're looking at replacing the Dale Street School, and the figures are mind-boggling. They're talking about 50 million plus for an elementary school. And I said, my God, what do they do? And a lot of it is the state regulations that are in place that drive up the cost. And then the state, bureaucrats will get up and say, well, the town officials need to manage their money better. I say, well, if you'd get off our backs and start telling us how to do everything, we might be able to manage our
Will you
finances
come back
better.
in periodically and talk to us about different issues in the state?
Sure. Yeah, because I think people need to hear it. I think people
'Cause I
need to know.
You'll be careful about stepping in on Christine's job.
Yes.
Be very careful about
yes,
that, I know that. And
I
I
told her
fully
I-
understand it.
I'm not going to hang around town hall because people need to know that it's her show now,
Yep.
and that I'm not in the background telling her what to do.
That's why I didn't go, that's why I never went to the selectmen's meeting after I retired.
Yeah.
Except if I was on one of my other committees, if I had to go as part of that, but I never went as an
Yes,
eavesdropper
yes.
or a watcher.
I
I
always
didn't feel comfortable with it.
I always remember Bob Woods telling me that after he retired as the pastor at
Yeah.
United Church of Christ, he was not allowed to go to church there.
I know.
he couldn't even attend. He had to find another church to go to.
He was one of my favorite people. Bob and Joan Wood, if you took a vote
really
through,
are,
the,
yes.
through our country, not our country, but our town, two of the most popular and best, good, solid people in town, I think it would be Bob and Joan Wood.
They really are, yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Although we have so many, you
Yeah,
know.
but they were
we have-
gems,
Yes.
and
yeah.
still are.
That's one of the things that Medfield is so lucky. We have so many volunteers that we couldn't afford to hire. You know, their professional backgrounds and their skills, but they volunteered for nothing and often get heaped abuse on them. And I say, why do they do that? But you know, I guess they have some personal satisfaction of
Probably,
accomplishing
yeah.
something. I remember Jack Williams one time, whom most people wouldn't know, but he was the Water and Sewer Board. And one of the main reasons we have a good water system over the years that he, you know, scouted the whole town looking for sites for wells and whatnot and developing the water system. And I remember one time saying, anybody that serves on a town committee for anything other than their own personal satisfaction is wasting their time. He said, I'd go home from a water and sewer board meeting and start telling my wife what went on at the meeting, and she could have cared less. He said, if your wife isn't interested, why would you expect anyone else to be
I
interested?
know exactly what he's talking about.
Yes. So it's we still have a tremendous number, and it's hard, you know, with both spouses working these days. It's tough to commit the time, and these days parents are expected to be very involved in their kids'
I know.
life. You know, they go to the games and go to the plays.
That was
and,
fun though, because we always went. I loved going to my kids' games.
It is, but it's difficult too. It's time consuming. I mean, you were lucky for many years when your kids were growing up, you didn't work.
You know what got me is I didn't realize how much it meant to my own sons. And my daughters played sports as well, but we had the 4 boys and the 2 girls. But when the 2 youngest boys were playing soccer, my oldest son took the afternoon off from work to go to their games. And I asked him once why he did it. He said, because they all had to go to mine. And I was so impressed that he did remember
did
the
that,
little boys
yes.
coming to his games.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
I
'Cause I still like going to the games.
You taught them well, I guess, huh?
Well, no, I think he
yeah.
just enjoyed the games themselves. Number
Yeah.
22 running down the field, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Good memories.
To me, that's much more satisfying than watching the Super Bowl.
Oh, I loved it. I still like
think-
watching games. Yeah.
Yes, I think if people, they were saying if you want a ticket to the Super Bowl, it's like $3,000, and then you get hotel rooms are like $400 to
My grandson paid more than $3
$500.
for
and
his.
it's obscene, you know, for kids' games that all this money is thrown around. But
But I still like the Medfield games. It was always beat Dover. That was the big thing. The biggest game of the year was, regardless of who was the best team, but they had to
Yes.
beat Dover. It was always the chant in the
trap,
morning.
yes,
Beat
yeah.
Dover, beat Dover.
well, every town, you know, they usually have the intertown rivalry.
Oh, yeah, it was
like
wonderful, but it was a good
no,
rivalry
yeah,
because
it's like Needham and Wellesley.
one of
and-
my sons ended up rooming in college with a kid that he played against from Dover.
yeah.
And then one of the coaches for Dover had lived in Medfield, and his son played on the Medfield team,
Yes.
and that was wonderful. So what he did was, for the Medfield Dover Sherburne game, is he invited everybody back for a cookout at his house, regardless of who won.
Who won,
I
yeah.
thought that's the way team rivalry is. It's wonderful.
That's being a good sport.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
I don't even remember who won the game.
Yeah. And in the long run, it doesn't really matter. You know, I couldn't tell you who won my Thanksgiving Day. My high school, our arch rival was New Bedford High School, and we always won in basketball. I went to Durfee, and we always won basketball, but they always won at football. So I assume they won the game, but I don't really know.
Well, they are good memories, though. They all are.
They are,
And
yes.
you've got a bunch of them.
Yes, yeah.
But like you, among my favorite memories are the people at Town Hall. I felt the same. It's like a second family.
Yes, yeah. People, and you know, people that get involved, I think it's a good way for them to meet people. So many people move to Medfield and have no idea what the town is like, and get so impressed about how willing people are to help out, to when someone's in need, when there's a situation that they need, whether it's a fundraiser or cooking meals or whatever, they're there, and it's very, people are very impressed by it. And that's many people who get transferred and then come back to the area. They want to come back to Medfield.
So what are your party words that you would tell the people today?
Have fun.
Have fun.
No, I don't. You know, expect things from your elected officials and your appointed officials, but don't be demanding. You know, realize they have their limitations and they're subject to a lot of rigmarole that they have to comply with. Many of them try to do their best. Most of them, I think, try to do their best, and it isn't always easy. So I think, by and large, I mean, I woke up this morning and I'm still trying to get up early. I don't want to start sleeping until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So, but I looked out the window and the school bus was coming by right on time. I said, no 2-hour delay in Medfield, get those kids in school right away. And you know, that's because of the cooperation between the police department, the school department, the public works department, and a whole bunch of other people that were able to keep the schools. And of course, you know, I'd like to take credit for the schools, but I can't. You know, there's so many other people that deserve credit for the schools. I'm not even going to go there.
Remember that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child?
Yes.
And that's exactly what I think happens here in Medfield.
Yes.
All those departments working together.
Yes, yeah, and people don't realize that, you know, they're on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning deciding whether they can get the parking lots cleared and the sidewalks cleared, and it isn't easy, you know.
That's right.
When you see all the towns around that have 2-hour delays or close the schools, and Medfield tries to stay open as much as possible, so
we're lucky.
We're very lucky.
You're lucky you got hired. I'm lucky we found this town by accident. I'm so glad we found it.
I certainly never expected I'd stay here 44 years.
I'm surprised the town put up with you for all those years. What do you
I'm
think about it?
amazed, you know. Somebody said, why are you retiring? I said, I've got to get out before they catch up with me.
I don't think there was much danger of that, though.
Yeah, I think I've always tried to keep my nose clean, so. And it's much easier, as I said to a couple of people lately, the first time you do something that you're ashamed of, they've got you. So just try to keep your nose clean from the very beginning.
And I think you did.
Yeah.
No, I think you've done a good job here, as you know. I really think you have.
Well, if there's one thing I learned in Medfield, is there are a lot of smart people here, and you should listen to them because they give you great advice and great help. And
let's hope they continue.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for you tonight?
I think I've rattled on long enough. So it's time to go out and face the cold. At least we're not in Minnesota. So.
But you'll come back and talk about different things in the state from time to time?
Sure.
Or any other topic you had? Because I'd love to have you come back.
Yeah, I'm sure there are topics, you know, when we get into, budgeting and, you know, tax rates and stuff like that. And the whole movement to, there's so many things going on at the state level. I'm very concerned about the growth. I'm afraid that Massachusetts is in danger of turning itself into a New York City. Yeah. You know, with all the building. One of the advantages of Boston was when you walk down the street, it wasn't always like that. You know, there was a scale to the city, and now you go in and it's skyscraper after skyscraper, and I'm afraid they will. A lot of these people will make tons of money and then say, "Oh, Boston's a mess," and they'll move to some other city and wreck that.
So you can fill us in on that the next time you come.
Sounds like a plan.
Be good.
Good, good. Well, thanks for asking me. You know, now that I'm a has-been, you know, a former retired.
You'll never be a has-been.
retired-
You always will is-been.
Yeah, well, I said, somebody said, oh, you know, you're important to the town. I said, in 6 months they'll be saying, what was that guy's name that used to work at Town Hall? So, memories are short,
Yeah.
so, and they should be. So, time marches on. Look to the future and don't dwell on the past.
You're right.
So,
Well, thanks, Mike, once again, Mike, for everything. And
Thank you.
You at home, thank you so much for watching Medfield TV. Next month, we will be meeting with the new town administrator, Christine Trierweiler, and see how she's adapting. She's a pretty good lady, so I think you'll be impressed when you listen. I think she'll do a good job. But once again, thank you for watching Medfield TV.